carved in stone. It is said that the deeps are named for an old man, Gulnar, who lived there with his 3 children. His eldest son was a cunning Suak called Topi, who loved to hunt and fish. The middle child, his only daughter, Kaisa, was a wise Kalavesi, whose eyes were so sharp they could see your skein even when it was too dark to see. The youngest boy was Freki, a wild Steiner, who liked nothing more than to run through the wild forests and leap across the streams. Annie smiled at her wife as they stood back, watching their children sit silent and still for the first time that day, wrapped in awe at the Scots storytelling. "I love this one," she whispered to Lydia. Gulnar's wife had died many years earlier, fighting the Thule, and he feared for who would look after his children when he was gone. So he gathered them together and made the eldest 2 promise to look after their young sibling and always to care for him. Topi swore on his bow that he would never abandon his brother, but Kaisa was too wise for such foolishness. She knew that no one can know what the future brings, and to swear an oath that you cannot keep is to summon a storm into this world. Lydia frowned. "I dunno," she whispered back. "I think I know this one. It's not a happy ending." When Gulnar passed into the labyrinth, Kaisa and Topi looked after Freki, out of respect for their father's wishes. But then the mystics came from the Aviary and invited Kaisa to join them. Her heart broke to leave her siblings, but she knew her calling lay in the reading of the omens, and so she left. For a while, Topi looked after his young brother, but eventually the wanderlust took him, and he put aside his promise, and took up his bow and went out into the world to make a name for himself. "Told you," said Lydia. "They won't sleep tonight. You mark my words." When the food was gone, Freki thought he would starve, but he went out into the forest, where he found a boar that the wolves had killed. He was so hungry that he gnawed on the bones and ate what little meat was left. When the wolves returned to the kill, they found the boy sleeping and thought to kill him. But the Thane of the pack knew the boy for a foundling, and they took him in and made him one of their own. "You worry too much. It'll be fine," Annie reassured her. But she made a mental note to keep her eye on the littlest just the same. Little Isa had a heart like the softest snow. And so the boy grew into a wolf with a thick coat of black fur and legs so strong he could keep up with the pack when they ran over the hills and through the dales hunting prey. But wolves live for 10 years and not a day more. And eventually they passed, and now the boy was alone once more. Strong now, but not strong enough to hunt wild beasts by himself. Hunger drove him closer to the places he had once known, to the homes of Gulnar's depths, looking for any scrap of food. When the people saw the wolf prowling round their hold, they worried that he would take one of their children to eat, so they sent away for a great hunter to come and kill the beast. It took Topi many days, but eventually he returned to the place of his birth, where he had sworn that terrible oath all those years ago. He took up his bow, and firing 3 arrows in a single heartbeat, one through the wolf's heart, one through the wolf's leg, and one through the wolf's eye. There was a collective gasp of horror from the assembled children. "Here we go," warned Lydia. She made to take a step towards their youngest, but Annie put a hand on her partner's arm. "Wait." As Topi took out his knife to skin the wolf, a falcon appeared and settled on the branches above the wolf's head. The hunter paid it no thought, but when he cut away the fur, all he found was his brother, Topi, lying dead at his feet. In that moment, he knew that he would be forever cursed as an oath-breaker and a kin-slayer. And he wept every day when the sun rose, and every day when the sun set, for now at least he knew his name. The Scop stood up and bowed low before his assembled audience of younglings. And that is why a true hero must always keep their word, and why a wise hero chooses their vows carefully. There was a collective and appreciative "Ooh" from the assembled children, followed by shouts of "More!" as the storyteller made to leave. "Time for bed," said Annie, raising her voice above the hullabaloo. A year ago, 4 members of the Assembly of 9 swore powerful oaths to bear auras of peace for the coming year. They promised to each carry a hallowed item and to do nothing to resist its effects. Since then, it has become more apparent that a number of those who swore the oaths have not kept them. The Assembly of Wisdom have publicly stated that they removed the blasphemous hallow from their cardinal, Silas of the Cenotaph, after a single season and destroyed it. Iniska Ashwood, the proxy of the Cardinal of Prosperity, had the hallow removed from them at the summer solstice by the Cardinal of Prosperity, who feared their proxy might face condemnation and death for their commitment to keep their oath. Only Vivian Barossa, now of the League, is known to have kept their vow to the bitter end in the face of the clamour to give it up. Thus far, breaking these oaths does not appear to be ill-omened for those involved or those close to them. This is not entirely surprising. Oaths are powerful hearth magic, especially when they are witnessed. But it is hard to say what breaking one will mean. A child who promises his mother he will be in before dark rarely faces the wrath of fate if he tarries after the sun goes dark. However, the more solemn the oath, the more public the swearing, the more potent the effects usually are for those who break them. And so it transpires. As the leaves fall from the trees and autumn comes round again, it would appear that an ineluctable judgment may yet be coming to bear on those whose solemn word has been broken. Apposite, then, that, just as this moment looms large, the Wintermark Assembly and the Assembly of Loyalty should choose now to opine on this subject, calling for the creation of a structure dedicated to the collection, preservation, and upholding of oaths. The afflicted assemblies. The effects are subtle at first, like a wind that rises imperceptibly from a breeze to a storm. No one notices initially, but by the time you are forced to take shelter, it's difficult to imagine how you could possibly have missed it. As the winds and the rain batter you, who can recall the first zephyr that heralded the oncoming gale? Dissension has always been a part of the Assembly of Wisdom in particular. The faithful pride themselves on testing what they learn. They do not accept the claims of others blindly. Traditionally, though, such agreements have been civil, a respectful exchange of ideas born of a shared desire to find the truth. But as the equinox draws closer, that respectful dialogue becomes increasingly rare, replaced by a rancorous hostility that seems to permeate every discussion, as citizens obstinately refuse to admit when the flaws in their ideas are exposed in front of others. There is no shortage of fools, and no shortage of people eager to chastise them for their folly. The Wisdom Assembly are not the only ones affected. Priests of the Assembly of Prosperity find their congregations bickering and feuding over every issue. Some followers of Prosperity normally use their priest's sermon as an opportunity to meet with like-minded people with whom they can collaborate on new endeavours. This benign networking fades like a puddle drying in the sun, to be replaced with bitter competition between those who operate rival businesses. The tenets teach people to share what you have with those who deserve it. But who wants to share what they have with grasping misers, thieving bandits, and lazy wastrels that they increasingly find themselves surrounded by? Eventually it becomes clear that both assemblies are labouring under a potent curse. Winter magic, the wisdom of the balanced blade, reveals that some kind of doom has settled upon the assemblies, sowing strife and discord in its wake. It is only projected to last for a year, but the months ahead are likely to be contentious and quarrelsome, marked by altercations and strife. The curse hasn't reduced attendance, but it has made the atmosphere febrile and argumentative. Unlike the others, the Pride Assembly appears to be unaffected. Why that might be is unclear, Some claim it is because Zadkiel de Cordefer has kept their oath, but the court records state that they were mugged and the item taken from them and destroyed. While that might absolve the former cardinal from any personal responsibility, it wouldn't do anything to avoid the oath being broken. Hearth magic does not care why something happens, only that it does. Whoever took it and destroyed that item did so in the sure knowledge they were condemning Zadkiel to a terrible fate, forcing them to break their oath. Despite this, nothing bad has befallen the assembly. Magicians who study such things believe it is most likely due to their proud decision to immediately step down as cardinal after swearing the oath. That prompt action may well have somehow saved their assembly from any debilitating effects when the oath was broken. Participation. Wisdom Assembly. Any character who preached wisdom to a congregation in the last year is afflicted by a curse. The effects will last a year, but may leave your character permanently altered. Any character who preached wisdom in the last year is under the effect of a curse for the coming year that makes them experience the following role-playing effect. You are keenly aware of the limitations of other people's thinking. Foolishness grates on your nerves more than usual. When people say things you believe to be wrong, you are reminded of the guidance of wisdom that tells you to despise folly and chastise the fool that spreads it. The curse will fade after a year, but players whose characters succumb often to the effects may choose to have them be permanently altered by the curse, remaining more willing to challenge others and rebuke folly after the curse fades. The curse can be broken by publicly swearing a significant oath. Provided the oath is profoundly meaningful for your character, and they are honest in their intent to stick to it, then the curse will fade. Out of character note. Let a referee know if you decide your actions have broken this curse. Participation. Prosperity Assembly. Any character who preached prosperity to a congregation in the last year is afflicted by a curse. The effects will last a year, but may leave your character permanently altered. Any character who preached prosperity in the last year is under the effect of a curse for the coming year that makes them experience the following role-playing effect. You are more keenly aware when others try to take advantage of you, especially when they try to take more than they deserve. People assuming you will aid them rankles more than usual. When they take what belongs to you and yours, you are reminded of the guidance of prosperity that tells you to despise the thieving bandit, the lazy wastrel, and the grasping miser. The curse will fade after a year, but players whose characters succumb often to the effects may choose to have them be permanently altered by the curse, remaining more willing to challenge others and rebuke folly after the curse fades. The curse can be broken by publicly swearing a significant oath. Provided the oath is profoundly meaningful for your character and they are honest in their intent to stick to it, then the curse will fade. Out of character note. Let a referee know if you decide your actions have broken this curse. A note on role-playing effects. How you respond to a role-playing effect is down to your characterization. A role-playing effect describes emotions and feelings that your character is experiencing. How you react to these feelings will be dependent on your characterization. You can't ignore the effects. Even if you are able to resist the urge, your character is still experiencing it. But, as a player, you choose how your character responds to the role-playing effects they are experiencing. It is fine if your awareness of these effects, and the intensity of them, naturally wax and wane during the event. The Vigilance Assembly. Every congregation that preached vigilance last season has gained 2 additional votes. The other assembly that has avoided any ill effects of the oath of their cardinal at that time is the Assembly of Ambition. In theory, they might have avoided any consequences because they roundly rejected the cardinal's actions and ordered them to leave the assembly. That could well have been enough to grant them a measure of protection against any magical repercussions, had there been any. However, the fact that Vivi and Barossa found a way to hold true to their oath, steadfastly refusing to break their word, despite the barrage of criticism they faced, was also enough to ensure that there were no repercussions. There is only one known way to absolutely ensure that you avoid the baleful hearth magic of oaths, and that is your word is kept, no matter what. It is commonly believed that Vivi and Barossa took on the aura in the hope of building diplomatic bridges with the Aksu, seeking a bridge to try and bring them to the way. The idea of opening the eyes of an entire nation of people and bringing them to the way is certainly in keeping with the virtue one would expect of the Cardinal of Ambition. The fact that they dramatically paid the price for their dreams only serves to underscore what the virtue teaches, that consequences are the price of ambition. Castigated by their own assembly, they were instructed to step down as cardinal in order to join the Vigilance Assembly to ensure the virtue of imperial priests travelling to Aksu. They have preached faithfully as a member of the assembly ever since, and what's more, they have practiced what they preached. While their peers were forcibly separated from the hallows they were given, allegedly by members of their own assembly, Vivian Barossa has ensured that the item she swore to carry has never left her sight. In summer, the Assembly of Nine called Vivian Barossa to Inquisition and ordered her to destroy the blasphemous hallow as penance. And yet still she refused to break her oath. It might not have been wise, it might not have been legal, but arguably it was vigilant. She understood the terrible repercussions that might come from breaking an oath, and she did everything to make sure that didn't happen. Their success and vigilance has inspired many in their new assembly. There is no shame for the others, who lost their hallowed items through no fault of their own, but Vivian Barossa achieved what others could not and kept her oath to the bitter end. Priests preaching vigilance to their congregations find newcomers attending their sermons for the first time, interested to learn more about the virtue, too late to have more liao assigned to their congregations by the civil service, but not too late to have the effects registered for their votes at the coming summit. Every congregation that preached vigilance last season has gained 2 additional votes. The effects will fade after the next summit. Deep magic. The Empire could build the Forge of Oaths at the Fingers in Handmark. Each season, the Keeper of Oaths could cut the words of a single oath into the stone of the building to ensure that they endured. If the Keeper of the Oaths recorded a solemn vow, it would be much more likely to invite disaster if it were broken, due to the hearth magic of witnessing. With the crucial importance of oaths so powerfully demonstrated, the Wintermark Assembly and the Loyalty Assembly have passed complementary judgments calling for the creation of a new position, the Oathkeeper. The idea is simple enough. Build a simple edifice, one that could be looked after and maintained by the Oathkeeper. They could then immortalize the words of an oath by cutting them into the stones of the building itself, ensuring that the promise was quite literally carved in stone. Most Wintermarkers quickly agree that the Fingers is the ideal location for this edifice, a virtuous site, one that celebrates pride, loyalty, and courage, all crucial virtues for those that need to find the strength to keep their vows. What better place to record the words of heroes than here, in the very spot where the formation of Wintermark is celebrated? The idea of someone who will witness oaths and work to ensure they are kept makes a lot of sense to many Wintermarkers, echoing as it does in many ways the role of the Stormcrow. The folk of the Mark understand that breaking your word is one of the surest ways to warp your skein in ways that can be hard to unwind. Having your oath witnessed and recorded can be invaluable in shoring up your courage when it comes to sticking to your word. Thus, the idea of creating a sacred site, somewhere to record the most important oaths, feels right to many. But some people do question if this is really wise. Oaths are an important hearth magic. There is something in the nature of swearing a vow that changes the world in ways that can often be difficult to predict. Scops know many tales of courageous heroes who swore foolish oaths, and then found themselves trapped by them. Witnessing an oath makes the hearth magic more potent, more likely to twist your skein if you break it. What would happen if you cut the words of an oath into the very rocks of the Fingers? Woe unto anyone who broke that oath. Anyone who had their oath carved into stone like that would be inviting the world to exact a terrible price if they broke their vow. Is it really wise to do that? To invite that level of scrutiny? To tempt fate in such a way? On the other hand, what better way to demonstrate how important an oath is? What better way to laud those who uphold their vows? If the Empire completes the Forge of Oaths, then the Loyalty Assembly could appoint the Keeper of Oaths to oversee it, and to choose which vows were cut into the walls. It could either be a national or an imperial position, depending on the wording of the Senate motion used to commission the edifice. It would need to be a Senate motion since it would also create a title. Further reading. Hearth Magic. Know Your Enemy. 387 YE Summer Wind of Fortune about the continuing fallout. The Final Cut. 387 YE Spring Wind of Fortune about the ongoing situation. A Little Understanding. 386 YE Winter Wind of Fortune about the response to the Oaths. Victory and Unity. 386 YE Autumn Wind of Fortune. Inspiration. The flavor text accompanying this wind is inspired by The Boy and the Wolves, collated by Andrew Lang and based on a traditional Native American story. Game design. Oaths. Oaths are a powerful hearth magic in Empire, reflecting their importance and significance in traditional stories. In classical myths and stories, breaking an oath is invariably bad, and the outcome is usually disaster. It is important to note that volition is not a relevant factor here. Indeed, in most stories, the oaths are usually broken through no fault at all of the individuals involved. A seminal example of this is the classic story of the death of Cuchulainn. The legendary Irish hero has a geish, an oath that prohibits him from eating dog meat. But in early Ireland there was a taboo against refusing hospitality, so when an old crone offers him a meal of dog meat, he has no choice but to break his geish. It's not his fault, but he still dies as a result. Live roleplay does not have to be like a story, so the outcomes can be different, but the themes are the same. If you swear an oath, you have to make sure your vow is kept, otherwise bad things happen. Oaths create a weakness for your character. They make you vulnerable to others, putting you in a situation where you have to break your oath, or simply breaking it for you, as happened to the members of the Assembly of Nine. Obviously, we can't keep track of every oath every character swears, but if the plot invites you to swear a big, important oath, like the Assembly of Nine were invited to do here, or like the March's generals were encouraged to do, then you can be sure that the oath is likely to matter a lot. The more public the oath, the more important an oath, the more likely we are to be aware of it, and the more likely it is that something bad will happen if it's broken. In many ways, oaths are meant to be broken. There are relatively few classic stories in which the hero publicly swears a solemn oath to do something, and then they just keep their oath and everything turns out fine. That would be an unusual story structure, a violation of Chekhov's gun. In live roleplay, it's cool to strive to keep your oath. The struggle is meant to be fun. But there will be more drama for everyone if the vow gets broken. Breaking a vow brings consequences, and that in turn leads to more role-playing, which is what we want for everyone at the event. It's meant as a punishment for the characters, but the penance is to have more role-playing to contend with. We do that in the hope that it will complicate a player's game and give them even more things to have fun sorting and dealing with at the event. There's no suggestion that anyone has done anything wrong. The plot would be much more boring if everyone had just kept their oaths and nothing happened. The characters who stole and destroyed the hallowed items and thereby broke the oaths haven't done anything wrong. To the contrary, their actions have meant more game consequences down the line. They acted in a way that makes the game more interesting, which is something we want to encourage to do. That's why the curses here are not meant to be punitive. They're carefully designed to be role-playing curses that a character can escape with more role-playing at the point where they decide it's right for their character to achieve that.